The HOA president blocked my driveway with steel bollards. She blocked 140 houses too. At 6:12 a.m., Mara Voss opened her front door and saw something impossible. Steel. Heavy steel. A line of metal bollards had been installed across her driveway overnight. Her car was trapped. Her property was blocked. And attached to one of the posts was a sign. Private access controlled by Pine Ridge HOA. For a moment, Mara thought there had to be a misunderstanding. Then she saw the workers leaving. And she realized something. The HOA president had not just crossed a line. She had created a legal disaster that would affect 140 families, because the road she blocked was the same road every home in Pine Ridge depended on. Mara Voss was the type of person people underestimated. She lived quietly. She avoided arguments. She didn't attend HOA meetings looking for conflict. She was simply a homeowner who wanted peace. But there was one thing most neighbors didn't know. Mara worked as an easement paralegal. For years, she had helped lawyers deal with property disputes. She understood deeds. She understood boundaries. And she understood one important rule. An HOA can make rules. It cannot take away legal property rights. The problem started with flowers. Mara planted hydrangeas near her driveway. They were beautiful. They were maintained. And they were completely on her property. But Victoria Hale, the Pine Ridge HOA president, didn't like them. 3 days later, Mara received a violation notice. The reason? Improper landscaping affecting community standards. The fine, $50. Most people would have paid it. But Mara checked the property records. The plants were legal, so she challenged the violation. At the next HOA meeting, Mara calmly explained the situation. She showed photos. She showed measurements. She showed documents proving the plants were on her land. Victoria looked at the papers and smiled. Mara, this isn't about measurements. It's about maintaining the appearance of our community. Mara replied, appearance rules don't override property ownership. The room became silent. Victoria wasn't used to people questioning her authority. A week later, construction crews arrived near Mara's driveway. They were installing steel bollards. Mara walked outside. What are these for? A worker answered. The HOA ordered them. We're restricting access. Mara immediately knew something was wrong because she recognized the road. It wasn't owned by the HOA. It was protected by an old easement agreement, a legal document created when Pine Ridge was first developed. That evening, Mara opened the county records. She searched the original subdivision documents. After hours of research, she found exactly what she expected. The road was a shared access easement. The HOA could maintain it, but it could not block homeowners. It could not deny access, and it could not install permanent barriers without legal approval. The next morning, Mara called Victoria. Why are there steel barriers across my driveway? Victoria answered confidently. The HOA has the right to control community access. Mara paused. No, Victoria. You have the responsibility to maintain the road. You don't own it. There was silence. Then Victoria replied, you should be careful. Fighting the HOA never ends well. Mara looked at the steel posts outside her window. She wasn't angry. She wasn't scared. Because she knew something Victoria didn't. The HOA president had just created evidence against herself. And by blocking Mara's driveway, she had blocked the entire neighborhood. The HOA's biggest mistake. By noon, the problem became impossible to ignore. Mara wasn't the only person affected. The same road blocked by the HOA was the main access route for the entire Pine Ridge subdivision. At first, residents thought the construction was temporary. They assumed the HOA was repairing something. But when they saw the steel bollards locked into the ground, people started asking questions. Who approved this? Why wasn't there a community vote? How are emergency vehicles supposed to get through? Nobody had answers, except Victoria Hale. And she was confident, too confident. At the emergency HOA meeting that evening, Victoria stood in front of dozens of angry homeowners. She held a folder and explained, "The HOA has taken action to protect community safety." One homeowner raised his hand. "Protect safety by blocking the only entrance." Victoria responded, "The access situation is being handled." But people weren't satisfied because everyone understood one thing. A road that couldn't be used wasn't protected. It was blocked. Mara attended the meeting quietly. She didn't come to attack anyone. She came with documents. She placed the original easement agreement on the table. "This road is not owned by the HOA." Victoria looked at the papers. "You are misunderstanding the document." Mara shook her head. "No, I read these documents for a living." That sentence changed the room because everyone realized Mara wasn't guessing. She knew exactly what she was talking about. The next morning, the consequences became worse. A delivery truck couldn't enter. A homeowner couldn't get to work. A medical transport vehicle had difficulty reaching an elderly resident. The neighborhood that Victoria claimed she was protecting was now suffering because of her decision. Then came the phone calls. Residents started contacting the HOA board. They demanded the barriers be removed, but Victoria refused. She believed she was still in control. That afternoon, Mara received another letter. This one was different. The HOA accused her of interfering with community operations. They threatened legal action. The irony wasn't lost on her. The HOA had blocked her property, then accused her of causing problems. Mara took the letter to her attorney. He read it carefully, then smiled. "They just made your case stronger." "How?" "They admitted they are controlling access to a road they don't legally own." The attorney requested every document from the HOA. Meeting notes, construction approvals, board emails, maintenance records. Within days, the first documents arrived, and one email immediately caught their attention. A board member had written, "Are we certain the HOA has authority to install permanent barriers?" Victoria responded, "Don't overcomplicate this. Homeowners need to follow HOA decisions." Mara stared at the screen. The problem was clear. Victoria didn't have proof of ownership. She only had confidence. And confidence doesn't replace legal rights. But then another discovery appeared. The construction company invoice. It showed the HOA had spent thousands of dollars installing the bollards. Money collected from homeowners. Money spent without proper approval. Now residents weren't just blocked. They were angry about paying for it. A group of homeowners visited Mara. "We owe you an apology." Mara looked surprised. "For what?" "We thought the HOA was right." One neighbor said, "We didn't realize they were taking control of something they didn't own." For the first time, people saw the bigger picture. This wasn't about hydrangeas. It wasn't about one driveway. It was about a board that believed authority meant ownership. Meanwhile, Victoria made one final mistake. She announced that anyone removing the bollards would face HOA penalties, but she didn't realize the county had already started reviewing the situation, and the document they discovered next would change everything. Because hidden inside the original property records was a clause even Mara had never seen before. a clause that could force the HOA to answer for everything it had done. The hidden document. 3 days after the steel bollards were installed, Pine Ridge was no longer a peaceful neighborhood. It had become a legal battlefield. The HOA president, Victoria Hale, still believed she had control, but the homeowners were beginning to realize something. The person who claimed to protect their community was the person who had created the biggest problem. The county inspector arrived on a Monday morning. Residents watched from their windows as he examined the road, the bollards, and the property boundaries. Victoria walked outside immediately. "We already explained the situation," she said. "The HOA owns this access area." The inspector looked at her. "Do you have the deed?" Victoria hesitated. "The HOA has always maintained this road." The inspector repeated the question. "Do you have the deed?" She didn't answer because maintenance was not ownership, and everyone watching finally understood the difference. Later that day, Mara met with her attorney. They reviewed every document they had collected: the original subdivision plans, the easement agreement, the HOA bylaws, the construction approval. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. The HOA had authority to maintain the road, but they never had authority to block it. Then Mara noticed something: a small reference number at the bottom of an old county document. She recognized it immediately. Wait, her attorney looked up. What? This document references an amendment. An amendment to the easement. Mara nodded. But I have never seen it. They searched county archives. Hours passed. Then finally, they found it. A forgotten amendment filed decades earlier, and the first sentence changed the entire case. It stated that the access road was protected for all surrounding properties, including Mara's ranch, including the 140 homes inside Pine Ridge. But there was something else. The agreement included a warning. No party using the easement could interfere with another owner's legal access. The HOA had done exactly that. Mara sat back. The situation was now much bigger than a driveway. Victoria hadn't just blocked one homeowner. She had interfered with a legal access agreement affecting an entire subdivision. Her attempt to punish Mara had created a problem for everyone. When the HOA board saw the amendment, panic started. Some members wanted the bollards removed immediately. Others wanted to continue fighting. Victoria refused. She believed backing down would make her look weak. "We cannot let one homeowner challenge the authority of this board." But the board members started asking a different question. What if she is right? The next HOA meeting was packed. Almost every homeowner attended. Victoria walked to the front expecting support. Instead, she faced questions. Why did you install barriers without a vote? Why did you spend HOA money on private construction? Why didn't you tell us about the easement? Victoria tried to defend herself. "I was protecting property values." A homeowner responded, "You lowered property values by blocking our homes." The room went silent. Then Mara placed the documents on the table. "This was never about my flowers. This was never about my driveway. This was about power." She explained that an HOA is created to manage shared community responsibilities, not to control property it doesn't own. For the first time, residents saw what had happened. A $50 hydrangea fine had turned into a legal crisis. That night, Victoria sent one final message to the HOA board. She wanted to take the matter to court. She believed a judge would side with the HOA. But she made one mistake. She underestimated Mara. Because Mara wasn't just a homeowner. She understood the law. And she had already prepared the evidence. The courtroom battle was coming. And when the judge saw the documents, the emails, and the timeline, everyone would discover the truth. The steel bollards that were supposed to show HOA power would become the evidence that destroyed it. The courtroom was packed. For weeks, Pine Ridge residents had heard different versions of the story. Victoria Hale claimed she was protecting the neighborhood. Mara Voss claimed the HOA had crossed a legal boundary. But now there was only one place where the truth mattered: a courtroom. Victoria arrived with confidence. She walked in with her attorney, carrying a thick folder of documents. She still believed she could convince the judge that the HOA was simply enforcing community rules. Her argument was simple. The road has always been maintained by the HOA. Therefore, the HOA has authority over it. But Mara's attorney was ready, because there was a major difference between maintaining something and owning the legal right to control it. The first piece of evidence presented was the original easement agreement. The judge reviewed the document carefully. Then came the subdivision records. Then the amendment discovered in the county archives. Each document told the same story. The road was shared access. The HOA had responsibilities, but it did not have unlimited power. Then came the email evidence. The courtroom became quiet as the attorney read Victoria's message. We need to make an example out of Mara so other homeowners understand HOA authority. Several residents looked shocked because this was no longer about safety, no longer about landscaping, no longer about protecting property values. It showed intention. Mara's attorney turned toward Victoria. Isn't it true that the first complaint against Mara involved flowers planted on her own property? Victoria answered, the flowers affected the community. Isn't it also true that after she challenged the fine, the HOA installed barriers blocking her driveway? Victoria paused. We installed safety measures that blocked 140 homes. The courtroom became silent. The judge asked a direct question. Ms. Hale, where in these documents does it give the HOA permission to block this access road? Victoria looked through her papers. Her attorney whispered something, but the answer never came, because there wasn't one. Then the county inspector testified. He explained that the bollards created access problems. Emergency vehicles could be delayed. Residents were affected, and the installation had not followed proper legal procedures. The judge listened carefully. Meanwhile, the homeowners watched from the gallery. Many of them had supported Victoria before. They believed the HOA was protecting them. But now they understood. A board can have rules. A board can have authority. But a board cannot ignore the law. During the final arguments, Victoria's attorney said, the HOA was trying to maintain order. Mara's attorney responded, order without legal authority is not order. It is overreach. Those words stayed in the courtroom because that was the entire case. Not flowers, not a driveway, not steel posts. It was about whether someone could use a position of power to control something they didn't own. After reviewing all evidence, the judge announced, the court finds that the HOA exceeded its authority. The room became completely silent. The decision continued. The easement provides legal access rights to affected properties. The HOA had no authority to restrict that access. Victoria looked down. For the first time, she wasn't the person giving orders. She was the person facing consequences. But the judge wasn't finished, because the biggest question remained. What would happen to the steel bollards? And who would pay for the damage caused by the HOA's mistake? The courtroom became silent as the judge prepared to deliver the final decision. Everyone in Pine Ridge wanted the same answer. What would happen now? The homeowners who had been trapped, the money spent on illegal construction, the steel bollards that started everything, and Victoria Hale, the HOA president who believed one small homeowner would never fight back. The judge looked over the evidence one final time. The easement agreement, the county records, the HOA emails, the construction invoices, the testimony from residents. Then he delivered the ruling. The HOA acted outside its legal authority by restricting access to a shared easement. The words hit the courtroom immediately. Victoria sat quietly. The confidence she had carried for months was gone. The court ordered the HOA to remove the steel bollards. The organization was also required to restore normal access to the road. The homeowners were informed that future changes affecting shared access would require proper legal review, and the money spent on the unauthorized installation became a major issue for the HOA board because thousands of dollars had been wasted on a decision that should never have happened. But the biggest consequence wasn't financial. It was trust. The residents of Pine Ridge had to face an uncomfortable truth. They had given one person too much power. They assumed the HOA president always knew best. They accepted rules without asking questions until one homeowner decided to look closer. A few weeks later, workers arrived and removed the steel barriers. The same place where the HOA tried to create control became a reminder of their mistake. Cars drove through again. Neighbors returned to their normal routines, and Mara's driveway was finally open. Some residents apologized to Mara. One neighbor said, "We should have listened sooner." Mara simply smiled. "I wasn't trying to fight the neighborhood. I was trying to protect everyone's rights." That was the difference. Mara never wanted revenge. She wanted accountability. Victoria eventually resigned from the HOA board. A new board was elected. The rules were reviewed. The community created better approval procedures. And most importantly, residents started asking questions. Because a healthy community isn't built on fear. It's built on fairness. Looking back, the entire conflict started with a $50 fine over a few hydrangeas. A small disagreement. A simple complaint. But one decision changed everything. Victoria thought she was teaching one homeowner a lesson. Instead, she reminded 140 families why property rights matter. Because sometimes the quietest person in the neighborhood is the one who knows the rules better than anyone. And sometimes the biggest mistake someone can make is underestimating the person they choose to challenge. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Vanessa's HOA, and turn on notifications so you never miss another unbelievable HOA story. Now tell us in the comments, if your HOA blocked your property access without permission, would you fight back like Mara or try to negotiate first?